A health alert tonight that's a concern for military bases nationwide. The government releasing its first in-depth look at the health risks created by chemical compounds found in hundreds of military water sources. The source of the problem, Firefighter foam. After spraying the foam on aircraft, the remaining foam and chemicals will be dumped into the ground or into a drain. That's according to the multiple former airmen interviewed by the Military Times. The study finds it has toxic chemicals that do not degrade in soil or water and can be absorbed by humans through drinking water, the soil, or air. The report adds that it even can impact fetuses, with the chemicals being found in umbilical cords and human breast milk. The study admits that these chemicals are present in everyday household goods but are concentrated in military firefighting foam. The study found that exposure could be associated with pregnancy complications, thyroid issues, liver damage, asthma, decreased responsiveness to vaccines, decreased fertility, and kidney and testicular cancer. The Military Times reports it interviewed former service members and their families who have reported cancers, miscarriages, and other chronic illnesses they suspect may be tied to drinking contaminated military base water. So the question tonight, where do we go from here? Where Senator Jeanne Shaheen from New Hampshire got funding passed for a nationwide study that will look at up to 10 military bases to study the effects of being exposed to the chemicals. It will create a national registry for service members and their families to report exposure to those chemicals.